Hello, my name is Luna. I'm 68 years old, and I've lived in Maple Falls, Georgia for over 4 decades. It's the kind of town where people wave at each other even if they've never met, where you can't walk into the diner without someone asking how your grandkids are. It's quiet, humble, and wrapped in a rhythm that doesn't rush, and that's always suited me just fine. My life wasn't anything flashy. I wasn't a traveler, a dreamer, or a risk-taker. I was a mother, a wife, and the manager of a little fabric shop on Willow Street called Carolina Stitch. I've been working there 25 years now. And no, there's no one named Carolina. The owner just liked the way it sounded. But over the years, it became more than a place to buy thread and patterns. Women would come in not just for fabric, but for comfort. They'd lean over the counter and talk about things: troubled sons, cheating husbands, aging parents, lost jobs. I became something like a small-town therapist. No couch. No. Diploma. Just bolts of cotton, a cup of tea, and 2 ears willing to listen. I used to say I had my feet planted firmly on the ground, but life has a way of shifting the earth underneath you when you least expect it. 4 years ago, my husband Walter passed away from a heart attack. It happened in the garage, while he was changing the oil on our old F-150. We were married 45 years. He was a steady man, a little gruff at times, but gentle in the way only someone who plants tomatoes in neat little rows can be. When he died, I thought I would crumble. I didn't. But something in me did go quiet. The house we shared, the one we raised our girls in, suddenly felt too big, too empty. That house, it's a modest 2-story, with faded shutters and a porch swing that creaks when the wind blows. There are apple trees in the backyard that Walter planted the first spring we moved in. I still make jam from those apples, though no one eats it quite like he did. We had 2 daughters. Rachel, the oldest, is the spitting image of her father: practical, determined, and allergic to failure. She lives in Savannah with her husband Tom, works as a senior accountant, and raises 2 teenagers who are somehow both overachieving and perpetually annoyed. Rachel always knew what she wanted. Even in high school, she worked weekends, saved every penny, bought her first car herself. She didn't ask for help. Not because she didn't need it, but because she didn't believe in leaning too hard on anyone, not even her mother. And then there's Sierra, my baby. She's 38 now, but still has that wide-eyed restlessness she had at 16. Sierra's always been a dreamer, chasing sparks and possibilities. Art school dropout. Hair dyed every color of the rainbow. Divorced at 35. She works part-time at Best Buy and raises her son, Jaden, mostly on her own. He's 10. Bright as can be. Reads more than most adults I know and builds model airplanes like it's a science. He's my little Wednesday and Saturday companion. We bake cookies, dig in the garden, or just sit on the porch and talk. Sierra's path hasn't been easy. It's been messy, tangled, full of sudden stops and hopeful restarts. She's moved 4 times in the last 2 years. Always cheaper, always rougher. Most recently, she and Jaden ended up in a 1-room apartment above a laundromat, the kind where the hum of dryers never stops, and everything smells faintly like soap and steam. Last Thursday, she came to see me unannounced. No Jaden, just her, standing in my doorway with that familiar look, the one I'd seen too many times before. Shame, desperation, and behind all that, hope. I already knew what she was going to ask. But I wasn't ready for what it would cost me. And I've learned that love doesn't always feel like love when it's happening. Sometimes, it feels like fear. Sometimes, it feels like a decision you don't want to make until you look into your child's eyes and realize you never really had a choice. That Thursday afternoon, Sierra sat at my kitchen table, wrapping her hands around a mug of cold tea. She didn't ask for money right away. She never did. She danced around it, talked about Jaden's reading scores, a funny customer at work, how the leaves were already changing colors early this year. Then she said it. Mom, I hate asking, but we're in trouble. A pipe had burst in the laundry room. The apartment flooded. The landlord said it would take weeks to fix if he even bothered. They'd been sleeping on a coworker's couch for 3 nights. Jaden was cranky, falling behind in school. Sierra found a new place. But the landlord wanted first and last month's rent, plus a deposit. $3,000. She had $800. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. But I saw it in her eyes, the same look she had when she got lost at the mall when she was 5. When she wrecked Walter's truck at 17. When she told me at 25 she was pregnant and didn't know if Gordon would stay. I wanted to say yes. I always did. But part of me ached with exhaustion. 3 months ago, I paid for her car repairs. 5 months before that, it was the electric bill. There was always something. I'd never kept count. She's my daughter. That should be enough, but I'm not made of endless resources. I live on a pension and a modest salary from a fabric shop. I'm not a bank. I'm her mother. And I was starting to feel drained. I told her I'd help. I always help. But I said something else. Too, something new. Sierra, this can't go on forever. You and Jaden need a stable life. You can't keep starting over. She nodded, swallowing hard. I know. Mom, I got a weekend job. They say I might get a raise in a few months. I'm going to make it right. I believed she meant it. In that moment, I really did. But that night, lying awake in my too quiet bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the same question that had haunted me since Walter passed. What happens if something happens to me? What if I'm not here the next time she needs help? What will become of her, of Jaden? That house, our house, it's worth at least $300. Oh, zero now. Maybe more. It's fully paid off. And I began to wonder. Maybe it's time it became more than just memories. Maybe it's time it became a lifeline. 2 mornings later, I called Rick Maddox, an old friend of Walter's who used to be a real estate attorney. He still keeps an office downtown, above the florist shop. Luna Carter, he said when he saw me. Haven't aged a day? What can I help you with? I told him I planned to transfer the deed of the house to Sierra, but with the condition that I retain the legal right to live there until I die. A life estate, he called it. Rick paused, took off his glasses, and looked at me the way you only do when you know someone for decades. Are you sure about this? Luna. She'd own the house outright. She could sell it, mortgage it, anything. You'd still have your right to live there. But well, it's a gamble. I nodded. Maybe if she owns something real, something that matters, she'll start seeing herself differently. Maybe she'll grow into it. Rick sighed. Maybe. But remember, this isn't just about Sierra. This is about you. Don't forget that. I didn't. But I also didn't forget the sound of Jaden's laugh. The way he always asks if he can plant carrots in the backyard. The way Sierra looks when she thinks someone still believes in her. So I signed the papers. Not because I was sure, but because sometimes being a mother means giving everything, even when you're not sure what you'll have left. And I used to believe that love Real love could never come back to hurt you. I don't believe that anymore. It had only been a week since I signed the deed. I thought Sierra would come by with ideas about curtains or which room Jaden might turn into a reading nook. I thought she might ask me how to make apple jam. I imagined a fresh start not just for her, but for all of us. But what I didn't imagine was a real estate agent in my living room. I came home from work Friday evening and noticed a sleek black sedan parked in the driveway. I didn't recognize it. Inside, Sierra stood by the fireplace, talking to a man in a blazer with a tablet in his hand. "Mom," she smiled. A little too wide. "This is Mr. Klein. He's a local realtor. Just doing a quick property valuation." What? Before I could form a sentence, Mr. Klein extended his hand. "Pleasure to meet you. Mrs. Carter. You've got a lovely property here. Homes like this big lot. Great bones. They don't stay on the market long." The market. I looked at Sierra. She avoided my eyes. "Can we talk for a second?" I said, my voice thin. She followed me into the kitchen. "Sierra," I said, keeping my hands steady on the counter. "Why is a real estate agent in my house? It's not like that." "Mom," she said quickly, "I'm just getting an appraisal. For planning." "Planning what?" "Exactly." She paused. "Look. This house is too big for us. For you. It's expensive to maintain. Property taxes. Heating. Repairs, you said yourself. It's a lot." I felt my heart drop. "You're planning to sell it." She didn't answer. "Sierra, I live here. You can't just. You'll still have a place," she said quickly. "I already found a great little condo near downtown Macon. It's on the first floor. Easy access. You won't have to deal with stairs or lawn care. It'll be so much better for you. But this is my home," I said, my voice starting to tremble. "It's where your father and I built our life. It's where you grew up." "You're talking about uprooting me like I'm some leftover box in the attic?" "You'll still have a roof over your head," she insisted. Arms crossed. "Legally. You have a life estate. That means you have the right to live somewhere. Doesn't have to be this house." I stared at her. "You're using a legal loophole to evict me. I'm not evicting you," she said. Too calm. "I'm optimizing the situation. Think about it. We sell this place. Buy something smaller outright. And there's still money left. Money for Jaden's college. For our future. You said yourself this house is worth over 300 grand. I couldn't speak. My hands started to shake. She took a breath. "I need this." "Mom." "No," I said. "Finally, you want this. There's a difference." She didn't respond. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked through every room of the house like it might vanish by morning. I ran my fingers along the wooden banister Walter sanded himself. I opened the linen closet where Rachel and Sierra used to hide during hide and seek. I stood in the backyard under the apple trees, still bearing fruit from decades ago. This wasn't just a house. It was our history, our legacy. And I had handed it away with a signature. 2 days later, contractors showed up without warning. They began stripping wallpaper from the guest bedroom, measuring walls, talking about open concepts and modern updates. I asked them to stop. They said Sierra had given full authorization. She didn't even pick up the phone when I called. Just texted back, "It's for the value." "Mom, please don't interfere." I sat on the edge of my bed that night, staring at the door like Walter might walk through it and tell me this was all a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. I had given my daughter everything I had. And now, she was cutting me out of it room by room, wall by wall. And that night, I stood on the sidewalk outside Rachel's house, holding nothing but my purse and a heart that felt like it had cracked straight through the center. I didn't remember how I got there. I know I walked to the bus stop with no umbrella, boarded the 5:20 p.m. route toward Savannah, then took another line that dropped me 3 blocks from her neighborhood. But everything in between was a blur. A tunnel of disbelief. I had left my own house because it wasn't mine anymore. I couldn't bring myself to ring the doorbell. I just stood there, staring at the porch light, glowing like a question I didn't know how to answer. Then the door opened on its own. Mom Rachel stood in the doorway wearing a flour-dusted apron and a confused expression. She was barefoot, her hair a little messy from cooking. And for a second, she looked like the teenager she used to be, running late for school with toast in her mouth. "Mom," she said again. Softer this time. "What happened?" I tried to speak, but the words didn't come. Just tears. Deep, guttural sobs that pushed up from somewhere ancient inside me. And suddenly, Rachel was by my side, wrapping her arms around me, guiding me in like a child who had wandered too far from home. She sat me on the couch, covered me with a blanket, and called to her kids like a general issuing commands. "Tim, get Grandma some tea, honey, and lemon. Ruby, sweetie, make up the guest room." Then she knelt beside me. "Take your time. I'm right here." It took 10 minutes for my breathing to steady. And when it did, I told her everything. About the house, the papers, the real estate agent, the renovations, the text messages, the words Sierra said to me, words that still rang like sirens in my ears. "Thanks for the house." "Mom, but I don't need you anymore." Rachel listened without interrupting, her face shifting from confusion to horror to fury. "I always knew she was impulsive," she said when I finished. "But this is cruel. This is unthinkable." I shook my head. "She says it's for Jaden, for his future." Rachel stood up, pacing. "No, Mom. She doesn't get to use that child as an excuse. That boy loves you more than anyone. And Sierra, she's never taken responsibility for anything in her life. Never." I looked down, ashamed. I thought if I gave her something permanent, she'd finally grow into it. Rachel sighed. "You gave her the house. That doesn't mean she gets to throw you out of it. You didn't sign away your dignity." I wanted to argue, to protect Sierra, to say she was just lost, or overwhelmed, or scared. But I couldn't find those excuses anymore. Not when I was sitting in my daughter's house, wearing borrowed socks, drinking tea from a mug that said "Best Grandma Ever" because I didn't even have my own cup anymore. "You're staying here," Rachel said firmly. "This is your home now. As long as you need. No arguments." I tried to protest, but she shut it down with one look. The same look Walter used to give when he meant business. Later that night, her husband, Tom, came home. Rachel had already told him everything. He hugged me without hesitation and said, "We'll get through this together. Whatever you need." Luna. Their kindness overwhelmed me. I cried again this time out of gratitude. That night, I lay in the guest room staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. I kept reaching for the lamp on the wrong side of the bed. I missed the creak in the hallway outside my bedroom. The sound of the old radiator groaning awake at 2:00 a.m. I wasn't home anymore, and I wasn't sure I ever would be again. But at least I wasn't alone. And for now, maybe that was enough. And when a child breaks your heart, you think that's the worst pain you'll ever feel. But watching them suffer because of the choices they made, that's something else entirely. A few days after I moved into Rachel's house, the calls started coming. First, it was from Rick Maddox, the lawyer who handled the deed transfer. His voice was flat. "Luna, I just thought you should know. Mr. Lang, the buyer Sierra was working with. He backed out." Why, I asked? Even though I already suspected, he said. He heard things. Around town. About what happened. Didn't want to be involved in a messy family situation. That's how he put it. Rick sighed. "I'm sorry. I should have warned you this might happen." I hung up and just stared out the window. Maple Falls may be small, but its gossip moves like wildfire. That same day, at the fabric shop, I noticed the way people looked at me. Not with pity, but with something closer to disbelief. Eleanor, the store owner, pulled me aside. "If you want to take time off, Luna, we'll cover you," she said gently. "You don't have to explain anything. I'd rather stay busy." I told her. Idle hands invite broken thoughts. She just nodded and squeezed my hand. But the real shock came 2 days later. It was nearly sunset when my phone rang. I saw the school's name on the screen, Jaden's Elementary. "Mrs. Carter," the principal said. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but we've been trying to reach Sierra and couldn't get through. Jaden's here, and he's refusing to go home. He says he wants to stay with you." My stomach sank. Rachel drove me to the school. There he was, sitting on a bench, arms crossed over his little backpack, lips pressed tight. "Grandma," he said the second he saw me. "Please don't make me go back." I knelt in front of him. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" He looked down at his shoes. "Mom said you wanted to leave the house. But I heard her talking. She said she was selling it, that it was hers now." A looked up. His green eyes filled with something no 10-year-old should carry. "Is that true? Did she take it from you?" I didn't know how to answer. "It's complicated. Honey, grown-up things sometimes are. But it's your house," he insisted. "Grandpa built that porch swing. You planted the tulips. How could she sell it?" I hugged him so tight I thought my ribs might crack. Just then, Sierra pulled up. Car idling at the curb. She rushed over. "Jaden, I've been calling the school. Why didn't anyone tell me I don't want to go with you?" Jaden said. Stepping back. Sierra froze. "Jaden, come on. Let's go." "No," he said again. "I want to stay with Grandma." She turned to me, eyes flashing. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing," I said quietly. "This is his choice." We stood there in silence. The principal peeked out the doorway, but didn't intervene. Finally, I stepped toward Jaden and crouched down. "Listen, sweetie, go home with your mom tonight. We'll figure everything out later." "Okay," he hesitated, then nodded. "Only if you promise I can see you soon." "I promise." That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, Sierra called. Her voice was hoarse. "Mom, Gordon filed for custody. He wants Jaden full-time." I said nothing. "He says I'm unstable. That I manipulated you? That I kicked you out of your own house? Did you deny it?" I asked. She paused. "How could I? It's true." There was a long silence. I messed up. "Mom?" she said softly. "I lost the house. I'm losing my son." People at work won't even look me in the eye. I don't know what to do. For the first time, she didn't sound defensive. She sounded defeated. And it broke me all over again. Because maybe this was what it took for Sierra to finally understand what she had done. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to begin again. And when my daughter rang the doorbell that night, nearly 2 weeks after I left the home I gave her, I wasn't sure if I was ready to open the door. But I did. She stood there in the rain with a grocery bag in one hand and dark circles under her eyes. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair pulled back in a rushed ponytail. She looked nothing like the daughter who once stood proudly in her prom dress on our front porch. She looked lost. "Hi," Sierra said, barely above a whisper. "I know it's late. I didn't know where else to go." I stepped aside without saying a word. Rachel was in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. She caught sight of Sierra. And for a moment, the air between them turned cold. Sierra held out the bag. "I brought a pie. Pecan. I made it myself." Rachel raised an eyebrow but took the pie. "You remembered not to show up empty-handed," she said dryly. "I remembered something," Sierra murmured. Rachel left us alone in the living room. Sierra sat down on the edge of the couch like she didn't know if she was allowed to settle in. She looked around. "This is a nice place." "Warm." I nodded. "Rachel makes it feel like home." Sierra twisted her fingers together. "Jaden's with Gordon this week. Court gave him temporary custody. He cried when he left. Wouldn't even look at me." Her voice cracked. "I did this to myself." "Mom, I know that now. I thought I was being smart. I thought if I sold the house, I could fix everything. But I didn't fix anything. I broke everything instead." I said nothing. "I lost your trust. I lost my son. The house isn't even listed anymore. No one wants to buy from someone who kicks their own mother out. And I deserve that. I deserve all of it." Tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't wipe them away. "I came tonight because I don't know. Not to ask for anything. Just to say I'm sorry." I looked at her, truly looked, and saw my child again. Not the grown woman who signed papers behind my back or threw my life into chaos, but the little girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms, curl up next to me, and whisper. I didn't mean to break it. "Mama, do you want to come home?" I asked quietly. She blinked. "Home, yes." I said, "Back to the house. To live there. All of us." She looked stunned. "After everything, you'd still let me come back." I nodded. "You didn't just lose something, Sierra. You learned something. And maybe now is when you start becoming the woman you were always meant to be." She let out a shaky breath. "But it's your house." I shook my head gently. "It was never just mine. It was our family's. And families don't throw each other away, not forever." Sierra broke down then, sobbing into her hands. I moved beside her, wrapped my arms around her shoulders, and held her like I hadn't in years. Rachel re-entered the room silently, watching us. Her arms were crossed, but her eyes were softer than before. "I don't trust you yet," she said to Sierra, "but I'm willing to try. For Mom. And for Jaden?" Sierra nodded through tears. "That's more than I deserve." "Maybe," Rachel said. "But we're not handing out what people deserve anymore. We're trying to build something new." And that's exactly what we did. That night, Sierra stayed for dinner. We sat around the table, just the three of us, and talked like we hadn't in years. About the past, about the cracks, about how maybe, just maybe, those cracks were the beginning of something stronger. The house would wait. But for the first time in a long time, The foundation beneath us felt steady again. And I never thought I'd see the day when I'd walk back into that house with anything other than heartbreak. But life has a strange way of circling back not to where you started, but to where you're meant to begin again. A week after that emotional night in Rachel's living room, I stepped across the threshold of my old home. The walls were still freshly painted in that trendy shade of soft gray Sierra had chosen to increase value. And a few pieces of new furniture still sat awkwardly in the living room. But somehow, it didn't feel like someone else's house anymore. Not now. Not with Sierra standing beside me. A little unsure. A little humble. And a lot quieter than I remembered. We didn't talk much that day. We didn't need to. I walked room to room, touching old doorknobs, peeking into closets. Hearing the faint creak of the floorboards Walter had patched up himself so many years ago. It was all still here, just quieter. Sierra had moved most of her things into the back bedroom. She'd unpacked Jaden's books and set up his little model plane station by the window. He was coming back that weekend for a visit, maybe even longer. Depending on what the family court decided, Rachel came by that Friday afternoon, holding a pie tin and a cautious expression. "I still think you're a little crazy," she said as she set the pie on the counter. "But I also think maybe that's exactly what this family needed." She looked around. "It feels different." "It is different," I said. "We all are." That night, Sierra and I sat on the back porch, wrapped in light jackets as the autumn wind rustled through the apple trees. The sky was clear, the stars like tiny holes poked in black velvet. "Mom," she said suddenly, "I still don't know why you forgave me." I looked at her. "Because I've been forgiven before. Maybe not by you? Maybe not by Dad. But by life. By time?" She shook her head. "I don't think I could have done what you did." "You will," I said softly. "For Jaden. Someday. You'll do something that scares you. Something hard. And he'll look at you with tears in his eyes. And you'll understand what it means to love past the hurt." Sierra didn't say anything. She just nodded. And for a long time, we listened to the wind. Jaden came back that Sunday, tentative at first, carrying a backpack that looked too heavy for his narrow shoulders. But the moment he saw his corner of the room set up exactly how he left it, with his planes lined up on the window ledge and his favorite blanket on the bed, his face lit up. He ran to me first. Then to his mom. "Is it okay if I stay here again?" he asked. Sierra crouched beside him. "It's more than okay. Buddy, this is your home too." There were still hard days after that. Days where Sierra had to face her guilt. Days when I'd catch her staring at the front door, as if waiting for another buyer to show up and undo what we were trying to rebuild. But slowly, something shifted. We cooked dinner together, nothing fancy. Just casseroles and cornbread. We planted new flowers in the backyard. We laughed when Jaden tried to make pancakes and set off the smoke alarm. Rachel started visiting more often. She still raised an eyebrow every time Sierra talked about plans. But she no longer stood with her arms crossed. She started standing with us. One night, as we watched Jaden teach Sierra how to fly a toy drone in the backyard, Rachel turned to me and said, "Maybe you were right." "Mom." "About what?" "About love. About second chances. About not giving up?" I smiled. I wasn't always right, but I knew that if this family was going to break, it deserved the chance to rebuild. And rebuild we did not perfectly. But honestly, not back to what we were, but forward into something more real. That house used to be my safe place. Now, it's our shared ground. And maybe that's what love really is. Not a shelter you keep for yourself, but a home you choose to open. Again and again.